Okay, up here in buildings and cities, we have next heat pumps. The ranking by 2050 is number 42 with 5.2 gigatons of reduced CO2 by then. $118.7 billion in net cost, but $1.55 trillion in net savings. Obviously, the world is warming up and demand for AC is going up. Here is Robert Simmer, director of Stadtwerke Amstetten. I have no idea how to say these things. A local utility company in Austria stands in front of a heat pump designed to capture and recycle energy from the sewer. So sewer is got some steam and energy in it that can be captured, and you know that in big cities with the grids over those pipelines or the canals, homeless people try to use that steam energy as well. Let's look at some of the numbers first. The building sector energy intensity in selected regions in sustainable development scenarios going from 2000 to 2030, and this is some sort of an index which is set at 100 for 2000, and then it's tracked for up to 2030 for various regions: Middle East, China, Central East, Central and South America, and so on. And the main idea is that the sustainable development scenarios want them to drop in terms of the energy intensity of the building sector, the heating and cooling, and of course the lighting and the other computers, refrigerators, bathrooms, etc. Use up lots of energy. So building sectors do use a lot of energy, and here is another way to look at it. So this is building sector electricity consumption in quadrillion British thermal units, another unit altogether. This is from US Energy Information and International Energy Outlook. So it's looking at 2010 to 2050, and there is the historic period. So you can see that the non-OECD countries, OECD is of course the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. This includes a lot of the global south, which are still running on a very inefficient system. So their energy consumption is expected to continue to rise in terms of building sectors. Electricity consumption per capita in the buildings in million BTU per person. So OECD is up here, and non-OECD countries are down here. So you can see the difference in terms of OECD countries having a much more comfortable building settings where the energy consumption per capita is higher, but the electricity consumption by the building sector is lower, whereas here the per capita consumption is lower, but obviously the population is higher as well. So depends on what you look at, but nonetheless the main message is that the buildings are a major consumer of energy when we look at the overall consumption of various sectors like agriculture, industries, buildings and transportation and so on, right? Global air conditioner stock from 1990 to 2050. I just wanted to show it that countries like United States are pretty much saturating, whereas China and India have a long way to go in terms of the percentages of households that are still not equipped with air conditioning. As they grow economically and they warm up, more and more people are going to crave for air conditioning, and they're going to buy air conditioners. So unless this is controlled with proper cooling technologies for the future, it's not going to be good for global warming. This is from the EASA scenarios for out to 2050. World space heating and cooling final energy used 2005 to 2050 suboptimal and state-of-the-art efficiencies. I'm not going to go into the details, but I'm saying that there is scenarios where state-of-the-art heating and cooling can significantly reduce the petawatt hour per year consumed for space heating and cooling. How does it happen? This is where the heat pumps come in. So looking at the IEA projections out to 2030 in terms of fossil fuel based equipment, conventional electric equipment, district heating, other renewables and hydrogen based and heat pumps, you can see that there is a tendency for heat pumps to increase, especially in the sustainable development scenarios for 2025 and 2030. The heat pumps go up. So the heat pumps basically have an external unit like this, which you may have seen. This is from energyeducation.ca. So it's showing the heating cycle and the cooling cycle. It's like refrigeration basically, as opposed to air conditioner. So the energy is moved here from outside to inside. So heat is taken in. It could be water, air, or even geothermal. It depends on where you're getting the outside heat. So that is going through an evaporator and a compressor and creating in the condenser hot air that is going to be supplied to the room. So this is the heating cycle, and then you have obviously the exhaust back to the outside. So this is a heat pump in a heating cycle, and in the cooling cycle you are actually going to take heat out of the room through an evaporator and compressor and into a condenser, and going to put the heat out to the outside. So this is the difference, and there are advantages and disadvantages. Greenmatch.co of the UK provides this list. So Greenmatch illustrated the essential heat pumps benefits and drawbacks in the following figure. So heat pump advantages: it has low running costs, less maintenance, safer than combustion based systems. So usually you use some kind of electricity, fossil fuel based or renewable for running air conditioners. Reduce your CO2 emissions, which is what we are looking for. Provide cooling during summers and heating during the winter. Long lifespans, so more than 50 years, extremely reliable. Renewable heat incentive scheme, so that's a specific UK scheme. Of course, there are some disadvantages. The cost up front is high, fairly difficult to install, questionable sustainability, significant work to your house and garden. Cold weather can damage the system because you have this big unit outside. Not entirely carbon neutral. Electricity is required, of course, but we are looking for efficiency and drawdown, and special planning permissions may be needed based on where you are. Okay, so this book argues that heating and cooling of residential and commercial building space requires more than 13,000 terawatt hours of energy and is estimated to increase to more than 18,000 terawatt hours by 2050. This energy use comes from on-site fuel combustion and electricity-based systems, from gas furnaces to air conditioning units, and we saw that air conditioning demand is going up. High-efficiency heat pumps reduce fuel consumption to zero and use less electricity to generate heating and cooling. This is the big message. Current adoption is low at 0.02% of the market, but we estimate rapid growth as costs continue to decrease by up to 25% by 2050. Okay, so the upfront cost is high but is expected to decrease. For a cost of 119 billion in addition, what would be spent on conventional technologies? Operating savings could reach $1.5 trillion over 3 decades and 3.5 trillion over technology's lifetime. So they do have a long lifetime, 50 plus years. Emissions reductions in this scenario come to 5.2 gigatons of carbon dioxide. So heat pumps require some socio-technical transitions, but is again argued to be a no regret solution, good for drawdown.